Investment losses are a retirement killer. I cannot stress this enough, man. We're going to go into this pretty deep. All right. So what we have here on the whiteboard here is this is when you're not retired. You're not retired because when you're retired, you're pulling money out. Here, we're going to have money where we're just leaving it be and then adding back in. So this is the difference between accumulation when you're still putting money in and decumulation when you're taking money out. They do these risk tolerance scenarios. They say, hey, I think Amar and I talked about this. Yeah, we did last time on our last live stream. Hey, I can handle it. I handled it in 2008, no problem. You were still adding money to it. You were still adding money to your retirement account. So you weren't pulling money out. It's a whole different game when you're starting to pull money out. So here we go. So we got a guy with $1 million. He's down 20%. Oops, 20%. So now he's got $800,000. He needs a 25% rate of return to get back to even Steven if he wants to be back within a year. All right. So you're down 20%. You need a 25% gain in that next year to get there. If you got 11.8% annually, it'd be back there in 2 years. 7.7, he'd be back there in 3 years. 5.7, he'd be back there in 4 years. And finally, 4.5 back there in 5 years. So if he was going to get 5% a year, if he's initially down 20%, if he got 5% a year as rate of return, he'd be back to even Steven about 4.5 years. Now, what happened in 2008, 2001, and 2002 is that most people who hadn't yet retired were still adding money to it. So in this case, we're putting in, basically 2% a year from our initial portfolio. So we're putting in $20,000 a year. Our portfolio fell from $1 million to $800,000. If it put $20,000 a year, it only take us 22.5% to get back to even in 1 year. 9.43% in 2, 5.4 in 3, and 3, 4, and then 2. So if you're adding money back, it changes everything. Because not only am I not spending, I'm adding it back. I'm adding it back. And that's not you in retirement. So now let's go into what it'll be when you're retired. All right, check this out. All right, so here's the same scenario. You got $1 million. Your portfolio is down 20%, so you're down to $800,000. Now you're taking $20,000 a year out. That's just a 2% initial withdrawal over here. So you're like, yeah, I can do that. Right? And you're saying, how long would it take for me to get back to even Steven? Well, you'd have to get 6.85% annualized over 5 years if you're taking $20,000 a year out of an $800,000 portfolio to get back to $1 million schmackaroonies. All right? 8% for 4, 10% for 3, 14% for 2, and 27.5% for 1 year. Now, could this happen? Sure. I mean, it happens all the time. Markets get killed. They go back up. Fire started the next year. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, we're sitting there pulling money out. We're like, 6.85% a year in 5 years. Is that doable? I don't know. Especially when you're pulling money out. Are you like, ugh? So watch what happens when we take 4. We're going to take a 4% rule. Check this out. Now, if we're taking $40,000 a year out, that's the 4% rule. All right. Now, we're not adjusting it for inflation and everything. We're just taking $40,000 a year out. That's all we're doing. We need 30% in the first year to get back to even Steven. So the portfolio fell by 20%. We're taking $40,000 a year out. We need 30% in the first year just to get back to $1 million. 16% annualized for 2 years. 12% annualized for 3. 10 for 4, and 9 for 5. You need 9% a year annualized to get back to even when you're taking $40,000 a year out. So think that's, and remember, 20% is just a run-of-the-mill bear market. That's no big deal. Let's watch with a 30% decline. Check this out. So now let's look at a real bear market down 30%. And then 2008 bear market was actually 2007 of October to March 9th of 2009, down 57%. And we're still just use 40%. We're still taking just $40,000 a year out, just a 4% distribution rate. And I just highly, highly caution you to say, well, I was able to handle it in 2008 when I was still adding money to it. I'm telling you. So here we go, 30% down. It's a pretty typical hurtful bear market, right? That's that happens once every 5 years or so. To get back to even when you're taking $40,000 a year out in 1 year, 48% is what you got to get rate of return. In 5 years, you got to average 12%. 12%. That's after a 30% decline. Are you going to get that? Maybe. As history probably say you probably could do that. Probably. You're going to let history define your investments, though? That's my challenge to you. All these people say, oh, historically, Josh. I'm like, history? Does that repeat itself? Because what changed historically, what happened historically that caused the investments to do as they did? And that's going to happen again? Yeah. A 57% decline. That's 100% stock market. 57% from top to bottom. And we only taken 40,000 a year out here. We should have had 60,000 essentially, because that's basically from October 2007 through March of 2009. Yeah, that's basically 18 months. Should have been a 60% distribution, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I've only taken 40,000. You needed 141% to get back to even. 60% annualized in 2 years to get back to even. 40% annualized for 3 years. Every year, you got to get 39.7% every year just to get back to even. Let's just get back to even. 25% over 5 years. You need to average 25% over 5 years. That should be one of those things, they do the high school football games, whatever they're called, that people wave that thing like that. Look at that. Look at me. Oh, yeah, look at that, dude. You can't really see it. Look at that. I should have been a drummer. Anyway, you'd have to get a 25% annualized rate of return to recover from a 57% loss when you're taking 40,000 a year out. And that's not even adjusted for inflation. That's just 40,000. Yeah. Tell me again how I can handle the risk. I can handle the risk. You can't handle the risk. You can't handle the risk. Especially when you get 5% money market accounts. What's the downside risk in a money market account? A T-bill. Ain't none. They call the T-bill the risk-free rate of return. T-bills are risk-free. That's literally what you compare your investments to, a T-bill, to see if you can generate what's called alpha. As silly as that is, that's exactly what happens with a T-bill. It's a risk-free rate of return. You got to be careful with these retirement risks, dude. I tell you, man. And then think about it. If the market goes, let's just say it averaged 17.7 over 3 years consecutively, what's the likelihood it's going to keep doing that? It's not. Now you're 3 years in, so that means you have 3 years left to worry about, but because you're 3 years closer to death. But man, it's no joke. Investment losses on the front end of retirement are just no joke. I hope you take it seriously and don't look back how you did in 2008, because that's a different you. All right. Love your thoughts. God bless. We're going to talk about this live tonight. I got some other studies to show you. I don't have the book here, from my man Jim Otar. O-T-A-R. We're going to look at his book a little bit and analyze the historical nature of investing returns after a loss. It'll be pretty interesting. All right. God bless. We'll see ya.